and he loses Hari along the way. And that just again continues to open the pathway for a big game here as Sky and Scroll look to hunt him down.
Out of all the duos possible to encounter inside of that building, the fact that it would be Sky and Scroll is a tough break here. But Cammy, still standing, still kicking, trying to make something work here. Swizzy, Pixie, very similar notes. Swizzy hoping that he could get an opportunity to heal, but they are picking up a lot of leftovers along the way, and Cammy just can't break through all these pre-existing builds working against him. He'll get caught, taken out. But Sky Scroll, this is probably the weakest that we've seen them look in this game so far, Levin. This might be the opportunity now. Sharktini, your time to shine. And they need to make sure that they really show out here because Swizzy, Pixie might be able to give them a run for their money. All they need is a little bit more builds from that frontside position. Sky recognizing the fact Pablo's been taken out. Counter elimination here, but Thomas roughing around. All these players stuck inside of the water, and it's just too much. Sky can't actually break through. Shark and Teeny now in the driving seat.
We wanted to see Sky and Scroll tested, and now the rest of the lobby has to watch as Shark and Teeny mounts to come back. Swizzy and Pixie, they do not want us to forget their names in this competition, but they have to try and find real control of this low ground. They have one side to themselves, but they need to find a refresh to match it. Teeny will drop down in an attempt to try and find some limbs along with Shark. We said we wanted to see the big game from them, and it might just be now. They have to close out the rest of these limbs. Every point counts for these two in this competition. And they don't want to throw away the win, but they need to get aggressive, and Pixie will go down. Swizzy will follow. TV is insane. Can they find the rest? Turtle will go up, but Shark will shut him down. These guys cannot be overlooked. Shark and Teeny with a 10 elimination game.
Nah, that was nasty from Teeny, though. The way that he just 180 whipped straight to taking those shots. I mean, Swizzy Pixie, they did their best. Same for us and Turtle, but only so much left to be done. I want to hear more of a breakdown, though, from the desk.
Thanks, guys. We were saying Shark and Teeny, it's not impossible for them to catch up on Sky and Scroll, but to do it, they need to have big games, and they just delivered one mini minor.
That's exactly what they need to do. Perfect high take right there. Really nicely done from these guys. They have finally awoken here on day number 2 after such a good finish of day 1. And I was looking back. I remember in the last post game, I was talking about Sky and Scroll having quite a similar or even better performance here than what they did in the last major. Remember we talked about at the beginning of the show, Shark and Teeny, they came back on day 2 last major. In that major, they won their second game. And here we are again. They've won their second game as well. So could we be seeing yet another huge comeback from Shark and Teeny? I certainly hope so, because realistically, right now, they look like the team to beat.
Yeah. I mean, they went from 21st to 5th in the last major, as you were alluding to, Minnie. But not only that, in their past 3 matches, they've gotten 2 wins and a first place. Okay, they ended yesterday with a win. They started today with a 5th, and now not only did they win the match, but as Frankie was mentioning after the last match, when they win these games, they win them with a lot of eliminations. Now, 10 elims, it feels weird to say, but I feel like that's not even a crazy match for them, right? It's like what you would expect. It's the bare minimum from a Shark and Teeny win. So if this trend continues, I'm scared for the rest of the lobby.
Well, the best part about it is they had it when Sky and Scroll went down in, what was it, a measly 6th place or something. That was absolutely terrible. Sky and Scroll, you know, they made it count, though. You know, in the game that Sky and Scroll didn't do good in, they actually managed to get the win. And that's really important, of course, for these guys, because you need to make that point differential up. Sky and Scroll, they're going to continue to have good games. They're going to continue to have really solid, consistent placements. But to set yourself apart from them and to catch them up, Shark and Teeny need to keep doing that.
Well, we'll be able to see how close Shark and Teeny are gaining on Sky and Scroll in just a few minutes. So join us then.
got hit with that roll. I'm popping a med bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds. No, max up. Wait, if you're mid, wait. 100. 100. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
Welcome back to FNCS Europe. It's day 2 of the grand finals here in Major 2, and Sharkantini have just claimed their second victory royale with 10 eliminations. Contrast that with Sky and Scroll. They've got 3, but with their victory royales, they tend to get less than 10 eliminations. Their best game has been 7 elims, the other 2, 6. And that's important when you think about the points, because Takata, Sharkantini, they're just over 100 points behind Sky and Scroll. And if they can replicate this success again, they could very well take over.
Well, you say that, but the issue is, look, Sky and Scroll, they basically had, I don't even like using this word, a bad match per se, and it was a 6th place with 5 eliminations. That is not bad enough to be overthrown by Sharkantini. They would have to go down way earlier and get worse placements. Now, this is exactly what Sharkantini have to do, but Sky and Scroll need to also just keep playing exactly how they're playing, and they can keep that first place spot, Mini.
Yeah, and I think this game is as important as that first game win that we saw from them. Yeah, of course, you know, it's a 6th versus a 1st, but the fact that these guys can still operate so effectively well when things are a little bit scuffed. We see it here, low on builds, all in the water. Sky's having to clutch a little bit, try and find some damage. The fact that these guys can still squeeze out a 6th, yeah, it's not their best game, just goes to show how much of a force they are to be reckoned with. A lot of that is down to the fact that they are so good as solos. Of course, we've broken that down so much, but just being able to stay in the game for just that extra bit longer, squeeze out all those extra placement points and eliminations, even when things aren't quite going your way in that end game, is what makes these guys so good.
I mean, that cheeky, opportunistic 5th elimination from Sky onto Pablo was chef's kiss. It's one of the things that just marks these guys out, those little details, squeezing every drop out of every game. Let's talk, though, about Swizzy and Pixie, my favorite day 2 team. They didn't have a bad start yesterday, but now we're starting to see them play their game. And it's interesting to me because in the past, I associate these guys with whoever they were playing with being high ground kings, but the low ground is where we're seeing them on repeat, Mini Miner.
Yeah, it's good to see. I mean, it's just that consistency from these guys that's been really impressive to see over the course of the weekend. Really important game for them as well, actually, this last game here. Takata 3rd place with only 2 eliminations, but what that means is that they were able to leapfrog a lot of those teams that were just below them, or just above them originally, now just below them, because, of course, they didn't have good games. And these are 2 very experienced players. These are 2 players that have been at the very top of EU competitive, so should stand up when it comes to the Grand Finals lobby and not shrink down.
Yeah, they're waking up. They got 31st to finish the day yesterday. Then today they started with a 13th. It wasn't looking incredible, but after that 3rd place, let's hope that they can keep that momentum going forwards.
Well, our top 3 duos have all qualified for the Global Championships, but iDrop and Gonzo haven't yet, and nor have Cringe and Twy and Hari and Cammy. Let's talk about Hari and Cammy, because it was up to Cammy to try and solo clutch further into the game for that one. But unfortunately, he was being pursued by Sky Takata, which is a position you don't want to be in.
Yeah, definitely not. But to be fair, it's a lot better than being contested off spawn and going down in 48th place, like in the first game of today. So they got 12th. It's not too bad. They were maybe a little scared. They only had one total elimination. They were just kind of farming as much placements as possible in their matches yesterday. Let me remind you, 8th, 2nd, 9th. They were getting top 10 basically every end game they got to. So a 12th here in game 2, it's not necessarily, you know, very bad, but at the same time, I'm hoping they step it up a bit.
Yeah, the sort of team that maybe at the beginning of the day you think, oh, maybe these guys could actually take home this FNCS. But then, of course, when things don't get off to the greatest start, it can be difficult to keep that momentum going. Now, of course, realistically, if you look at the overall weekend when we started it, their goal should be, and still is, to qualify for the Global Championship. So they should be just fine in that department. And it's just about keeping those consistent end games going and trying to reach as high as they can, because realistically, they've already ticked off that Global Championship call, you have to imagine.
Now, let's take a look at page 2 of the leaderboard. I'm trying to do the mental maths and try and work out where the cutoff is right now. I don't know if you're aware, to Carter, but we know that Dom and Demas, for example, they have already qualified, and so have Chino and Pablo. So it's fair to say that Rax and Yanis right now, and potentially Pixofty and Seren as well, are in with a shot of qualifying. It's interesting with Yanis and Rax because we've barely spoken about them all weekend. We spoke about them in the pre-show yesterday, and then we didn't talk about them at all after that, but they've been quietly making headway, it looks like. Do we think that this is just a case of trying to adjust to the lobby mini minor? Do you think we're going to see more from this duo? Because we'd expect to, because of what we saw in the heats.
Oh, definitely. These guys were really, really good in heats. Of course, they're growing into the weekend, I think, as well. I think the way they started was okay, not amazing. They just need a little bit of that confidence, especially when you're playing with a player like Rax. Maybe just needs that little bit of a boost of confidence. They had one good game yesterday, I think it was, that was really solid. The rest have just been pretty average to Carter, but that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the day today. It's like you don't need every single game to be really good. You just need a few sort of diamonds in the rough, if you like, to push yourself up the leaderboard.
So the cutoff is actually that 16th place spot. There was 5 global qualified duos in the top yesterday, and now there's 7. So it's kind of moving up and up. Mr. Savage and Truly actually are 1 point off being the cutoff of qualifying to globals. So we'll see if Rax and Yanis can keep it up. They're in 12th, so they're actually pretty comfortably there right now. But for the duos below them, it's going to be a bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I was expecting a better performance from them on day 1. I actually put them in my own top 5 predictions just because I believe in the power of the experience and the young fragger. So let's see if they can at least qualify for Antwerp. And let's see if Savage and Truly can also have a stronger game. Pablo and Chino is an interesting one for us as well, because actually they started so strongly in game 1 yesterday. They're another duo that kind of can get by without you noticing them. And then when they have a big game, you really stand up and go, oh yeah, this team Takata can play Fortnite.
They can. This is a duo that's more than capable of winning the whole competition, but they really just had a devastating start yesterday after their 2nd place. They kicked it off with the top 2, but then it was 49th, 49th, 50th, 33rd mini. It just started going downhill, but at least they've started things off a bit stronger today, but I think we're almost ready for the next game, Frankie.
We are, so let's see if they can do even stronger in game number 9.
It's a really interesting factor, though, that Takata is bringing up here, Levin, and that's knowing that 7 out of 9 already global certified teams are currently sitting inside of that top 14 portion of the leaderboard. So that little bit of an extension trickling down to now top 16, and probably everyone in this lobby hoping that for Sias and Scary, Chap, and Flixie, they also wind up in that top half, because it just makes it all the easier. So let's see what happens here in game 9.
We've already had a brilliant start to the action today, and I am so curious to see who has more in store for us. We have so many different teams playing for the championship win, playing for a global spot, playing for their pride at the bottom of their leaderboard and their Osborne reputation. For Cringe and Twy, they are playing to return to the action. And we know Surge has been a problem for them, so this early elim at 100 damage for Twy will hopefully do wonders for their hopes today.
Would be even better still if Cringe is able to get some additional damage off onto Bimbo or Radeon, but Twy and Cringe might be the epitome of suffering from success. You know, day one having gone so favorably for them, and Cringe Twy, they're not going to let this opportunity go to waste. They've been trying to figure out a new method to build up that surge so it can stop plaguing them in these endgame instances, but right now, Godoy, Polo, trying to extend it in that return fire. It's a little bit more than what they were anticipating, and Godoy might just be able to turn the tides on this one if they're not careful. Polo potentially trying to get brought back into the mix, but Cringe will quickly shut that down, as he should. But now Bimbo Radeon also applying a little bit of additional pressure from a distance. They need to ensure that this is concise, and they find it fast enough because Cammy closing in rapidly, also looking to try and alleviate some of those surge woes. Oh.
Wait. This is not good for Sky and Scroll or any Danish fans. Nebs and Nathan, they are looking to take their early damage seriously. And they've set their sights on Sky and Scroll. A ruffle or a hurdle that they have to overcome now in their early game strategy.
Oh, you had it though, ruffling their feathers a bit, right? But Nathan and Nebs, while Frosted Flans isn't too far away from the 0 point, at the same time, getting that little bit of damage in, still just a bit of a setback here. And not only that, but when you think about where Nathan and Nebs are probably trying to prioritize building their surge, knowing that how these zones are pooling, it might be working against them.
And that's something to keep an eye out for. Nathan and Nebs in this game didn't, you know, get a knock and start fighting them. But if they're going to continue to look for opportunities to get damage onto Sky and Scroll, if Sky and Scroll aren't careful, there may be a game where Nebs with his crazy aim hits a crazy beam and all of a sudden you're one man down and it completely derails your game plan. We'll see if even that little engagement was enough to frustrate their plan, just enough to where Shark and Teeny can continue to try and come back and close the gap.
And it's scary to think about too, because for Shark and Teeny, when you see them throwing up games where they're netting over 100 points per lobby, that victory royale is just sort of looming over the heads right now of Sky and Scroll, because while it looks like it's still a pretty monumental gap between first and second, the fact of the matter is we know that Shark and Teeny can put up the numbers to match the pace. And for Cringe and Twy, now cycling right back, we know that they had a lot of success in the early off spawns yesterday, but they've got to try and make up for some of that damage they ate after dealing with Godoy and Polo. Yakuza Aza, Bimbo Radeon, though, just further complicating things. You want to look for a clear angle, but it's tough because you know that there's third parties at play here, and you don't want to get sandwiched in the process.
Not at all. You have to fight carefully with the consideration of their surge struggles would mean that they maybe are just a bit more desperate for the damage now rather than wanting to deal with things later on. Sometimes that over-eagerness can just catch you out a little bit.
Can't forget about Chap and Flixie, who also seem to just be steadily closing in here. Managed to avoid any sort of attention, but Bimbo and Radeon, they'll probably be some of the first to be alerted. Chap and Flixie decide to get a little bit closer still, but with the way that Cringe and Twy are currently split from each other, Lev, this could go really bad or really well in a heartbeat, because one big shot to open things up would mean great collapse there out of each other's counterpart. But for Danny Puzo and Azat playing hip to hip, they might have the advantage too. Just playing those defensive metrics. Yanis and Rax.
Oh.
That is not the kind of bounce back that you'd be aiming for in day two. Tough scenes across the board.
Rax might have some ops in the production team, man, because that was
That was
a rough one.
you hear Rax in replay, you think it's going to be elimination, right?
Look, there's a lot of people who might be watching guys for the first time. Rax is a great player. Rax is one of the most talented players in this lobby. That is not the best he has to offer, but unfortunately, That is what he had to show in this case. For Giannis, though, he will have to do his best to get Rax back in the game, so hopefully he can start to provide some more highlights for us.
It's just even tougher still to think about because they were sitting in that 12th place position just inside of the cusp of where they want to be. But with teams like Jewel and Tidy having success early on, you know a healthy duo is bound to be a pretty big threat here in overtaking your position. But Heatwave Harbor, not necessarily up for grabs. This is still primarily where Thomas and Focus like to operate out of, and it's interesting that they're just letting this one come to a little bit of a slower match. They saw the eliminations, Jewel and Tidy, a little bit too quick, so no real third-party options just yet as Nico Malabuka. Lurk game one didn't go so well. Lurk this time around, well, a bit better, but still nowhere near what they needed it to be at. And that early elimination is just going to continue to pose a lot of drawback for this duo.
Cammy and Hari, a team who I think their performances surprised a lot of people yesterday. But I think showcasing a lot of what has made both of these players so great throughout their careers. Thomas and Focus, I think, are yet to show us their greatness. Two players who have all the talent to be competing for FNCS titles, but are yet to really push themselves into that type of standing.
Still can't count them out just yet, though. We know that with the way a lot of these zones have been going, it's kind of worked against them.
What do you think needs to change for them, though? I feel like we've just not really seen them be a factor in any of these endgames, whether it be playing for height and power positions or low ground, mid ground dominance. We haven't really seen them play.
Genuinely just want to see them get much more aggressive way earlier on. You've got two of the best aimers on the region in one duo, and yet it feels like we only ever really get an opportunity to check in with them being a bit fraggy if somebody's trying to challenge for the vending around Heatwave Harbor, but they're just capable of so much more. We've seen them be so much more, and in a Grand's lobby, it would be, I think, a huge favor to themselves to just also start reminding the region exactly what sort of potential the public eye has always kind of looked at them at.
So we saw Nebs and Nathan taking shots towards Sky and Scroll, and we wondered, will it affect them much? Seemingly, not so much for now. Based up as usual, looking for damage, and he might just find some over to Pablo and Chino.
Pablo and Chino might have plans of their own, though. And remember, they were the only team to actually challenge Sky and Scroll in that first major. But just check back in and see whether or not that actually goes either way for those two teams, Flixie and Chap. They've been lurking a bit, still didn't necessarily get a clear pairing of eliminations that they would have liked onto Ivan or Hizix. Still have bendings to play through from Golden Grove, though. Sharktini, another duo, just continuing to kind of scope out the area, gauge whether or not they'll have enough surge to kind of carry them through for that late game circumstances. But they're making it very difficult for teams to actually cut through this section of the map. Actually got a handful in their sights, Tidy and Jewel, but it's Teeny who's actually on the receiving end of some damage for the moment. Debated if he should just pause and heal. Fortunately, they're not going to be able to get much more than that for the time being.
Yeah, that's really bad. When you're playing a storm like this, you're banking on being able to deal as much as you can for as minimal received back. And so for them to not really get much damage off of Tidy and Jewel whatsoever, you can see, yeah, the desperation for Teeny. You sort of wants to just hunt them down and see if you can sneak any sort of tag or any sort of damage. The question becomes, will Tidy and Jewel be ready for this? Maybe not. They've run into Bimbo and Radion, and that distraction might just be enough to allow Teeny to lurk his way on in and get some free damage to make up for what's lost.
Based on where Shark's at, Shark might have even been able to relay to Teeny the sort of Bucks fight that's beginning to unfold here as Jewel, Tidy, a little bit stuck now, trying to contend with Radion and Bimbo, but both Tidy and Bimbo looking incredibly low. Teeny, the potentially, right, this could be a great opportunity to strike, but he's still playing it patient, still wants to ensure that when he does make his entrance, that it's going to net him surge. It's going to net him damage, but now Shark and Teeny, you'll have to watch as their prey just takes this fight somewhere else, completely out of the eye of where Shark was actually based at. And for Tidy and Jewel, this is definitely a very beneficial win here as they take down Bimbo and Radion. That's going to make 4 eliminations already for these two.
That's been one of the most fun things about watching Tidy and Jewel today. They are not afraid of a fight. In fact, they allow fights to play into their favor. They want to get aggressive. They want to box fight people. Truly, and Mr. Savage just allowing this competition to maybe slip through their fingers just a bit. Day 1 was certainly a good start. Win to start the day and finished in top 10. A great performance, a great spot to be in. And today was just about continuing more of the same. Unfortunately, not quite there yet, but still plenty of games to get back into rhythm.
Savage and Truly also taking note of some of the players trying to make their way back down, touching solid ground. Minori not going to get the chance, will be dropped here, but the nature of this lobby for day 2, everyone seems to be playing at a much slower pace in comparison to how day 1 sort of panned out. And part of the reason why we see so many teams struggling for their surge. Initially, everyone had kind of been a lot more willing, I think, to sort of duke things out off spawn, but today's competition, it's all about who can play the Storm the best, not get tagged up on their way towards the edge of zone here. But Yanis Rex, they need a recovery point, especially after that early mistake. And if there's ever a time to do it, it would certainly be right now. Only 18 above on the damage threshold, and material count not exactly where it needs to be. They want to pose further threat here. And yeah, just like that, Surge starting to work against them. They only need a little bit. Not a lot, but even then, no one really providing them much of an opportunity here.
Let's take a look at what Gonzo's cooking up. Patiently waiting at the toilet and... oh boy, cheating in gear ass. Didn't see what hit him.
Rajab and Gonzo, we saw them camping out the teleporters, camping out the porta potties now. Methods of transportation just not seeming to be very safe when these two are in the lobby, but that's definitely going to pay them huge favors, these rotations. Managed to try and isolate a bit from the rest of the lobby. They know Pinker is directly next to them. Nathan Nebs also just underneath the bridge face. Sky and Scroll could be in a world of hurting here. It all depends on just how far Savage and Truly actually want to take this, but Savage doesn't have the luxury of deciding. He just needs to start getting active alongside his duo, Truly. They are currently below on the search threshold, and neither of them has any form of shield. They're going to have to depend on body loot to make up the difference here. Hellfire and Winter. This is not going to be an easy battle for them to overtake. Savage and Truly Instead, reconsidering just when they want to try and pounce here. Sky and Scroll, no stoppage whatsoever. They were in some trouble. They managed to bail themselves right back out.
What a game it would be if, after witnessing Sharkentini win with 10 eliminations and start to at least encourage people and give them hope that this will be a close competition of some sort, if they were to just come through and just win this game and completely shut up that whole narrative, Truly and Mr. Savage unfortunately go down, and once more we'll have to hit the drawing board.
Interesting shot right now, though. The way that everyone's trying to scale up the elevation. iDrop and Gonzo just trailing behind where Sky and Scroll were at. Teeny and Shark, though, they'll have the best seat in the house currently. Just looking down at everyone else trying to crawl their way up this mountain face and not really providing any sort of a safety net. Gotta be cautious, though. Gonzo has made his approach. Largely just wanted the positioning, but Sky and Scroll, only that one elimination so far. And Nebs and Nathan kind of playing a bit of spoiler early on. The surge is seemingly a problem right now for these two.
But look at their positioning. They have access to dead side and they're able to just walk through. Look at all the congestion on the right of the zone. And Sky and Scroll, the only duo in the lobby on the left. Look at all the time they have to work with. They don't have to block off the angles. They don't have to do anything. There's nobody around to cause them issues. I always talk about how these guys, it just feels like whenever you watch them, they have more time than the rest of the lobby to play with. And this is a perfect showcase of that here. And in such a great position here on dead side, they can look to refarm, maximize their materials as they move into this endgame, where once again, it will be the same script. Dominate front side low ground, wipe out the solos, and win the game.
And while it's true that they did have more time than most, the build count still not looking the healthiest, though, to completely lock down that frontside position. It all depends on how much material was actually expended from so many other teams that had to actually work their way through that congestion on the mountain face. So surely ample teams still working with scraps here, but Scroll takes a big chunk out of his shield count as now Shark and Teeny close in on Focus. It's a very solid elimination for these two to pick up, and they are still perched in a good spot. Potentially try and challenge for a height if they don't already have the best control of it so far, but Sky, Scroll, they need a refresh as Frosty and Josh, though, really making them work for it. Scroll has taken a bit of a beating here, but Sky immediately alleviating all of that pressure. A little bit of siphon materials, too, gonna go a long way for these two as they manage to circumvent the focus and pressure out of the congested areas in the lobby. They are ultimate low, and no one is anywhere near them.
Yeah, and look, who holds high ground? Asa and Turtle, they came second in the last game. They are a team that desperately is trying to force a comeback into a global championship qualifying position. Cammy, unfortunately, will get dropped. There is no room for error in this one. Teeny and Shark know that, though. And so they look to continue their aggression, use the momentum they have.
It's just so hard to tell, though, where these players are going to start dropping in on you from. Everyone just swooping in at the final seconds because of how heavily this elevation just shifts at a moment's notice here. But Teeny and Shark still doing a great job controlling the flow of the lobby for the most part, even with Asa and Turtle overhead. As long as they can avoid their direct view, they can still lock down this middle layer of front side. But Sky and Scroll, they'll definitely be a duo to try and size up to later on. Good chop right now out of Teeny and Shark. But Asa, Turtle, even with them dropping, it's now just gonna be the open entry point that Shark and Teeny were waiting for. These two currently on the high ground, but they are going to need more if they want to try and hold on to it. They don't have a whole lot of builds up there as Sky and Scroll just continue to make their presence known on the low ground.
Yeah, some more players on this layer that they need to deal with. They found their refresh when they needed it before. Can they do it again? You'd have to think the answer will be yes. The zone starts to pull towards the north. It gives them a bit more time to try to force this fight onto Electris. And the pressure will continue, but eventually you have to move. No materials left for Scroll. and Sky will have to drop what he has to offer. And again, for a second, they will just find a bit of breathing room, a bit of space to set up for that next fight.
But look at the angle. Sky knows it. High ground is looking directly at them, but they need the refreshes, and they're going to manifest them every single time here, it seems. Sky and Scroll now just tearing through anyone who dares come near them on the low ground. But Sharktini still looking to see if they can replicate that Game 8 success. Sky goes up and immediately takes a whopping shot here. Sky and Scroll in the last 2v2, but it's actually going to be them who turn it around. You would think that Sharktini are about to bring this one home, and just like that, Sky and Scroll have 180 the positioning. Another victory royale. This is getting ridiculous here, Frankie.
It is getting ridiculous, but it's also getting better and better. The action just keeps on coming. The twists, the turns. Having Sky and Scroll go head-to-head with their nearest rivals, Shark and Teeny, is just cinematic perfection, Mini Miner. And I expect to see more of that going to the next few games.
Wow, that was two of our top teams going head-to-head. We haven't really seen that too much throughout this weekend directly, but wow, how important could that moment be in terms of the momentum for Sky and Scroll? Maybe nipping it in the bud, if you like, for Shark and Teeny, because they were looking really good right there. But wow, Sky and Scroll, I mentioned it at the end of that last game. These guys are so good when they're, you know, stacked on mats, they're front side, they're looking great. But when things aren't looking so great for them, like in this game, Levin mentioned it, they were sort of on their own, just on literally the other side of the map to the rest of the lobby. Taco mentioned it really nicely as well in the cast, that they didn't have all those materials. They needed to find refresh. Right here, look at this, 4 bills in 8th zone. What is going on? And for a lot of teams, that would really throw them off. That would really make everything from there on out just crumble. But for Sky and Scroll, they seem to somehow always find these refreshes to Casa and then continue to make it happen. These guys seemingly, there's no faults, there's no holes, there's no chinks in their armor.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's incredible how well they play frontside low. Like, it is disgusting. I almost have to do a double take here in these final moments because, okay, Sharktini, yeah, you know, it's Sky Scroll, but Sharktini are high. Surely they win the game, right? Nope. Scroll somehow lands every single shot, takes out Shark after, and I was like, wait, hold on. Okay, my whole storyline thing has been messed up now. It's like, yeah, Sharktini's gonna win, but Sky Scroll's playing consistent, blah, 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 blah. It's not even getting to that because Sky and Scroll are looking so unstoppable.
I love how every single movement from them and every single act of aggression is so calculated, and that's why they don't make any mistakes, because they're constantly assessing every single rotation, every single interaction with their enemies on the map, and I can't wait to see more. So we'll see you guys in a few minutes to talk about what else went down in Game 9.
I got hit with that one off. I'm popping in that bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid, wait. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Prevent your right from blasting into space?
There are just 3 more games of FNCS Europe's Major 2 Grand Final. So let's take a look at the players and focus powered by Milk to see who the big hitters in the lobby are. There's no prizes for guessing that Sky is absolutely dominating. And of course, Pablo's clutching incredibly mini-minor.
Yeah, shall I take Sky, Takai? Yeah, he's top in eliminations, damage dealt, AR damage and damage ratio, of course, but just unreal the way that Sky is playing. We spoke a lot about these guys individually, so talented. Sky right now showing up, of course, throughout the weekend. And again, I suppose the fact that he's not in the solo clutch position right there, Takara, is a good thing because it just shows, it's like they're actually playing well as a duo, and Pablo isn't as well. So it's still impressive from him, though.
Right, arguably, like I was about to mention that. I was like, you know what? That's actually like he couldn't have played it out better in terms of the stats. It says players, you know, at the top, it's just player at this point. Sky's looking unstoppable.
Yeah, it's nice to see Scroll not being the solo points clutch leader. Clutch solo points, you know what I'm talking about, because if we were thinking back to Major 1, he probably would be there. Even Summit would probably be there. So it's a vast improvement from these guys. And I mean, they are looking unstoppable. The only people who could stop them are Sharkantini, but they're now 244 points behind. Yesterday, Sharkantini, they just didn't have the discipline, it felt like, to really pull off the games that they needed to until game 6. Is it too late now, Takata, is the question I have for you.
I mean, it's never too late in Fortnite, right? You don't know what could happen. We've seen early game devastations happen as tournaments concluded, but it's getting there, right? I mean, 622 points for Sky and Scroll. They have an average placement of 5.1. Sharkantini are behind them on that stat at 11.2, more than double their average placement. So they are just playing way too good for anyone to be close to them right now.
And honestly, Frankie, I think if you'd asked me that question and Sharkantini had won this game, I'd be like, nah, not too late. Look at them. They just wiped Sky and Scroll right here. They were on the high ground. They were dominating that end game. They put themselves in the position and took down the team ahead of them. The fact that Sky and Scroll still won that game, despite all the things going against them early on in the game, low on bills, needed refreshes, low ground in a zone that was all over the place in terms of hills, you have to just say that Sky and Scroll is taking this. But it's really nice to see Sharkantini come into their own here in day 2, because we all knew they were capable of it. It's actually nice to see them actually showing it now.
Well, iDrop and Gonzo currently in 3rd place, and definitely looking like we're going to be seeing them in Belgium. So more Danish fans will be very happy tonight. And the thing about this duo is they have had some up and down moments. They've gone 3rd, 37th, and then 10th today to Carter. Can they keep the yo-yo in the air and make their way, well, solidify their place on the leaderboard? They're not probably going further, are they?
I think they can. They can hold their place for sure. I mean, their matches haven't been the best, but they've been significantly better from their matches that concluded yesterday. As a reminder, they kicked it off super strong, back-to-back 4th places, but then it was the polar opposite. Now today, I'm happy with how they're playing, honestly. I'm excited to see them qualify to globals if they continue this pace.
And Kami and Hari, again, another team that's trying to build back into things, find some stability. Unfortunate start today with the surprise contestation, but now we are seeing them make it off spawn, mini minor, and into the end games. I just feel like there's still opportunities they need to find to pop off even more.
Oh, for sure. And I think stability is the key word, really, because, of course, they were shaken at the beginning of the day. The stability that they had from day one was completely knocked. And now they're slowly starting to get back into things. This is exactly what they need to do. They need to maintain their position right now, try and break into maybe that top 3, because the top 2 right now is just looking so much further ahead. And I think they're a team that can do it. I think in a lot of these sort of lobbies and a lot of day 2 of Grands, we've sort of seen it with Cringe and Twy. There are teams that haven't been in this situation before. There are teams that aren't used to being up at this stage of the leaderboard. But for a team like Hari and Cammy, they are. So they'll know how to conduct themselves now. They'll know what they need to do. And it's all just about execution.
Let's take a look at page 2 and see which teams are on the cusp of qualification for the Global Championships. Remember, there are 9 spots up for grabs, and there are 9 duos in the lobby who've already qualified. Takata, big gasp from you. Why is that?
Look at the 16th through 14th. Honestly, just look at this whole page, okay?
Yeah.
There's 3 duos that have the exact same point range, and actually a number 16th is the current cutoff, I believe. So it is way too close for any of these duos to be comfortable in their qualification to globals right now.
Look at that, 30 points between 20th and 11th. That's the difference in a massive amount of prize money. That's the difference between globals and not. It's absolutely huge. And for teams like, you know, Pink and Haris there in 18th, moving up 6 places, really nice solo clutch from Pink there at the end. That's really what makes a difference. So each and every single game here on that second page of the leaderboard, things are going to change so much. I'm really excited to see how things change and really who's got what it takes now to qualify through to globals, because it is just that close.
There have been a couple of great length games for Pink and Haris recently. They found themselves in sticky situations with the likes of Vico and Malabuka lurking on them, biding their time in the storm, trying to get a cheeky elimination, and Pink and Haris were not giving anything up for free just a couple of games ago. Can they keep making it through? Because if they do, we will see them in Belgium. I'm not saying I'm biased or anything, but I'm clearly bias. We'd love to see them make it. There are so many duos currently in that contention. That 30 points is going to change as we go into game 10. Takata, who do you think has got what it takes to make it through to Antwerp?
Look, right below Pink on the leaderboard is Mr. Savage and Truly. Now, their last 2 matches have not been great, 26th, 28th, but they are just a couple placements off being in that qualifying range. So I want to see Savage and Truly step it up this second half of day 2.
Minnie?
Yeah, I completely agree. Although he's pandering to all the Savage fans out there, I completely agree with it. I want to see him, of course. Everyone wants to see them at LAN. I want to look at 21st. I'm looking at my other monitor here for the leaderboard. Size and Scary. What's happening to him?
What is happening?
Hello?
Well, we'll find out. We've got 3 more games, so let's get back into them. It's time for game 10.
Might need Takata to give those guys a pep talk or something, Levin, if they don't start kicking it up a notch here soon enough. Not only that, but this entire lobby also really hoping that Size and Scary can make their way into that top 18 section, because it would just make it all the easier for other duos to potentially get that qualification spot to Belgium.
Yeah, I mean, and that now really is the question, right? I think the first question we wanted to answer today is, who can beat Sky and Scroll? We don't have an answer for that one. Let's see if we can answer in our next game who will call for globals. Of course, if you are trying to qualify, you want to start to secure yourself in one of those spots and separate yourself from the bubble, because it is quite the bubble, Taco. So many different teams in the running to take one of those spots and represent Europe. Oh my goodness, what do we have here? Ping and Ghost have contested Sky and Scroll, and we've seen them in some high stakes off-spawn battles before, and it looks like this time around, Scroll will be the one to get the final elim and win things out. What a surprise that was.
But for Ping and Ghost to be the ones to try and do it, these guys must just be factoring in that they don't want to see a runaway competition. It's hard to tell, Levin.
My head is spinning right now. I have so many questions. Why are you anywhere near here? For one, I don't know what they were cooking up. If you decided you want to switch up your off-spawns, things haven't been working for you, which again, it pretty much hasn't been for Ping and Ghost. Why contest Sky and Scroll? I mean, I know Summit's off-spawn didn't quite go their way, but let's take our minds back to Major 1 when they were in an off-spawn battle against Pablo and Chino, and they had the pixel perfect drops. This isn't a team who are scrubs off spawn by any means, and they showcase that there. Scroll does well to hold his nerve and keep their lead alive. Sharkantini, I'm sure they must have definitely, if they have anyone coaching them, letting them know, hey, you know, they almost went down off spawn, like, you almost had it. Let's make sure we have a good game here.
It's just certainly an interesting step to take for Ping and Ghost's position. Still, fact of the matter is that late night off spawn practice definitely paying off tenfold right now for Sky and Scroll, and the fact that they were able to come out on top here. Ari and Cammy, though, they've been surprised one time already, and this time it's going to be Haris and Pink who catch them off guard over at their off spawn point, but this is a tough break.
Yeah, and Pink and Haris are one of those bubble teams, a team who a couple good games now would do enough to send them to the global championships. And what that would mean for Pink, I mean, it's been a long time since he has touched the land. Haris is a player as well we have not seen in such a long time, and so these are players who desperately want to make this work. And when that desperation kicks in, Tackle, you start to do anything in your power. That's where you start to whip out all of the secret strats you've been holding on to. Little tactics figured out in scrim sessions that you wanted to save for a big moment have to come out now.
For Lyrics and Maldives, they've certainly got a tall task in front of them of trying to deal with the likes of Vico and Malabuka. They're just playing, fully understanding qualification for Belgium. They've already secured that. They are our summit champions after all, but this has definitely not been the grand performance that they would have initially intended for. That's why we see them just trying to take things up another level here. They've already got one elimination. Looking for additional pair on Lyrics and Maldives will be the first one brought down by Vico. Malabuka still looking to try and close things out, but he might get turned on if he's not careful. Lyrics dodges he might. It's going to be it out, but it's the third-party intervention here now to ultimately play spoiler. Vico and Malabuka, but it initially seemed like it'd be a lock. Axe Force and Bevies have just decided, you know what? This actually looks like a comeback opportunity here. If we can find any sort of a catalyst, it's like you said, Levin, teams using every single trick left up their sleeves right now to try and put themselves in a better position to make it into that bubble, to make it in to the qualification section for Globals. And Vico tries, he might, won't be able to get away. Axe Force and Bevies just get the upper hand on this one.
Yeah, and Axe Force and Bevies, again, a team that has had sort of a roller coaster of a competition. Ups and downs, a couple more downs and ups, you'd have to say. But a big win in this fight. And hopefully they can snowball that into a big game here.
I know that we're seeing Medius lighting up that elimination feed for a moment. Watching iDrop and Gonzo. I'll opt for the teleporter. Whether they choose to camp it out, though, we'll have to wait and see. But there are a lot of teams that are still seeking out that Global's qual spot. And I know one that everyone in the EU region would certainly love to see would be Savage and Truly. But again, today has just been so lackluster. And they've got to start and build any semblance of rhythm here between the two. Just one solid game, Levin. That is realistically all it would take for these two to get a little bit of a buffer zone here. But the desk already highlighted it. That leaderboard, 11th through 20th, when only 30 placement points are really separating that many different competitors, it just gets so dicey. You don't want to overthink it, but you also don't want to find yourself in a position where you're hesitating. And that's where Savage's experience could show up.
I think one thing we've seen in Grands over the years is there's always teams who really just struggle with the changes all across the lobby on day twos, right? Changes when it comes to your surge strategy, changes when it comes to what teams are landing around you or on you, as we've seen in some of these games. And I think so far these guys have been dealing with that the worst of a lot of the better teams we've seen today. I'd be curious to look at just a session leaderboard for just today and where they stack up on it. Can't imagine it looks too good.
Well, might get a chance to dive a little bit deeper into that later on. For right now, Sinister Strip, Sky and Scroll, they've left Frosted Flats. And you have to remember, even though they succeeded with the off spawn, they did take a good chunk of return damage, so the Surge not necessarily fully in their favor just yet. They're just caking out some space right now, but Chino, Pablo, with this being their starting point, very likely they're not going to be big fans of Sky and Scroll choosing to make themselves feel at home.
Don't think it matters over there, fan of it. Not much they can do about it.
Fairs. Sometimes that's all that can be said for these teams, but one duo that has been particularly exciting, Fat and Headletches. Largely just because, Levin, they've done a great job in today's competition. When we're talking about teams that haven't necessarily done the best in making those adjustments to day two, this is one that has certainly delivered so far. And with back-to-back fourth placements, it has helped them out tremendously with finding very solid footing in terms of getting that placement metric for the Belgium qualification spot. And they keep up the pace. If they can just continue replicating the success that they've already started with, they'll definitely find themselves nestling into that Belgium's battle bus in no time whatsoever. But for Cammy, Hari, Pink, and Haris, they might have just been the dagger for this duo. Dandy Puzo and Azat gonna further punish Cammy. No real ability to escape here. Hari is left off somewhere else entirely, but it is just a daunting task to sit and hide, hope that you're not seen. Just crouched around. Pink and Haris have just got him completely cut off. Just nowhere left to really run.
And the problem is he doesn't want to whip out his shotgun because it's going to make a sound cue. So he's forced to just hold the mini out until they make the play. And then he'll have to switch, and doesn't have much HP. Can't pop the mini because that's going to make sound. I don't think they know he's here. It's not an easy spot for him to get out of, yeah. Just rotating away, and that works out nicely for Hari, especially because of the storm coming in. That HP was dwindling. He desperately needed to get access to that vending machine. And so things will work out for him there.
But even if he makes another play for the reboot, even if he brings Cammy back into this one, they are going to spend so much time inside of the storm in comparison to a lot of other competitors in this lobby. That storm sickness is very likely going to be an issue for them later on. And that's if they even make it to that stage, right? Actually pulling off a successful endgame performance from the cards that they've been dealt in game number 10. It's going to be very rough as Teeny Shark, one more time, getting a little bit more damage than what they were actually able to dish out. But that's not to say that they haven't been able to do their part.
Yeah, that last game, I think, was a real pivotal moment. That final 2v2, I think, is one that will be remembered in EU FNCS history for many years to come. Because that really felt like the turning moment. If you're Teeny and Shark, you have your global spot solidified. All that matters to you is trying to get this first FNCS championship. Teeny has come so close many times before. Shark needs that chip. The validation that his talent can amount to wins and success. But to lose that 2v2 and lose the game, it's so symbolic to just how dominant Sky and Scroll are.
They're just not leaving any sort of room for error. But it could also be a bit of a motivational factor here for Shark and Teeny. If they're still able to somehow, some way catch up and potentially overtake Sky and Scroll, that would definitely, it would just say so much in terms of what they're able to actually do on the biggest stages. But for Sky and Scroll right now, ball's in their court. They haven't really feel any sort of pressure outside of that initial off spawn.
And we're in, you know, the double-digit games now, right? And with this type of a lead, you've got to think, well, another big game here, and if Shark and Teeny can't deliver a big game to match them, that's really where you have to start saying sayonara and allow them to waltz into the sunset. But hopefully that doesn't happen, because we like some drama. We like to be kept on our toes. There is still plenty of drama though, because so many of these teams in positions to qualify for globals. Velo and Zynox currently one of those teams in a position to qualify. But one of those teams who, again, if they don't fix up in these last 2 games, or 3 games, including this one, obviously, then they could very easily fall out of that position, Taco, and be watching the Global Championships just like the rest of us.
And it's always easier said than done, right? You would think that it's just going to be a done deal when you've already found yourself overcoming a lot of those troubles in day 1, and then a whole new slew of them just being introduced on day 2. But Chino, Pablo, might be getting a little bit active here. Sky and Scroll now feeling some pressure, currently underneath search threshold, but not by much. Still, if they are going to take an engagement, Pablo and Chino might just be one of the worst teams they could be having to match up against, because we know just how potent they are as fighters. And not only that, but if they feel like they've got any signs of weakness out of Sky and Scroll in that box fight, you'd expect that they're going to continue trying to press that issue and ensure they find an overall win. So Sky Scroll, they're trying to see if they can get their damage elsewhere first. They're gonna look to get some shots in at some of these teams that are trickling in from the edge of zone. Search just continues to work against them. And the time that they have to spend healing, Levin, it's time, seconds lost, that they could be trying to apply damage instead.
Not had the chance of watching these guys get ticked by Surge much today, or at all this weekend. But do not adjust your screens. This is real. Sky and Scroll are down below and are struggling to find the damage needed to keep them in this game. And opportunities don't feel aplenty right now. They miss out on a pivotal couple of teams there. iDrop and Gonzo, as they rotated, that is one of the options they needed. Scroll leaves himself too exposed, and that puts Sky even further down below now. And you've got to think this is going to be the end of the road here in game number 10 for Sky and Scroll. They are human.
It's crazy to think that even gods can bleed at times after all, but Sky and Scroll now will have to sit and wait to see how Shark and Teeny actually fare. And with that elimination onto Cammy, we know what kind of struggles Cammy's been dealing with.
And the implications of this now are huge, because obviously this game started off with the shock surprise contestation from Ping and Ghost. If just them being contested, even when they win, leads to struggling games like that, is that what the rest of this competition is going to hold for them? Do Ping and Ghost continue to try and fight them off spawn? What happens when Ping and Ghost win the battle? And now there's even more of an opportunity for Shark and Teeny to try and catch up.
What if it's not just Ping and Ghost? That's the other issue too that now starts to be introduced into the mix, because we know that Ping and Ghost are willing to take that chance, but other duos, maybe even some of our leading contenders, now potentially wondering if that might be an option that steadily opened itself up to them. Still Savage and Truly scoping back in the grand scheme of things for lobby number 10. A very awkward position right now. Almost 200 underneath that surge entirely, and not only that, but practically fully out of any sort of utility. Savage will use the last of his Chug Jug. They're gonna have to rotate eventually, Levin, and they're gonna be rotating directly in so many different duos' line of sights. That's why they're trying to get the damage before they make their way across, and they have managed to just catapult themselves over now, 196 above, but still in such grim circumstances. They're not the only ones. Pink also struggling currently, despite starting off with that off-spawn surprise. It hasn't actually netted them any favors in the long run here. And now Truly Savage still looking to see if they can have some form of a breakthrough, but Yanis and Rax, they're the ones who are actually desperately in need of another fight. Surge does manage to tick in their favor, but it works against Savage and Truly at the exact same time.
Yeah, and this really puts them in a bad position moving forward. I mean, not only the need for the extra damage, of course, just 4 players needing to drop, but a lack of materials, a lack of shields, and the poor timing ultimately is a recipe for failure. Shark and Teeny will continue their trek towards catching up to Sky and Scroll. And now there is hope for them in this game.
They've got decent builds too. Every little bit of damage. It's largely going to be the elimination points that I think these two are after. Unfortunately, Shark blocked there momentarily on the rotate, but won't deter them too heavily. Pixovsky and Saren also trying to do what they can just to keep their heads above water. They don't want to sink just yet, but Pixovsky forced to drop as a solo. He'll have no other options but to try and get a little bit of surprise play, crouching around some of these lower layers. Truly very similar category. Just hoping that he can get the opening shot he needs. Depending exclusively on a refresh here is just such a fickle position to be in. And working in also from the backside of the zone, you know that there's going to be so many pre-established teams lying in front of you. Somehow, some way though, neither Truly or Pixovsky has encountered anyone just yet. No one looking down, but that could change. A couple seconds here. Sure enough, though, Truly able to create just a little bit more space. Hasn't run out of materials entirely just yet. Same sort of circumstances too for Pixovsky. We are watching 2 separate solos just doing everything in their power to squeeze out every little bit of placement, but Truly scouted it out. It's a healthy duo right next to him. He'll have to get a move on, overdrive forward. Doesn't care where it sends him as long as it's away from those two. He can keep this one rolling forward.
And you can see in the rest of the lobby, many of our global championships qualified teams having a bit of fun, finally finding their groove in this lobby and strutting their stuff. Thomas and Focus, it's been some time since we've seen them on height, but finally another opportunity for this duo to continue to cement themselves high up in the standings, while down below so many more of our talented duos fight for a chance to compete in Antwerp. Teeny and Shark drop down and looking very weak. Taco, not many options, and so they're gonna have to get to work with their shotguns.
Not only that, but they're also trying to evade high ground, but just like that, Teeny finds Mindro a little bit too preoccupied with what was directly in front of him. That is a big opener for Shark and Teeny. That's Siphon helping out Teeny tremendously here, but even still, Shark incredibly weak, still trying to break through. The Woodbill's just making it through in the nick of time, but with Shark just on his last legs here, they're gonna have to try and convert yet another elimination, but it's Shark who gets brought down. Darkos and Minori a bit too healthy to contend with here, and they know they've got a body rolling around behind them. Whether or not Teeny's gonna let them actually get to it, though, is another conversation entirely, because they're trying to just match pace with the rest of the lobby. They're trying to stick towards frontside, and Teeny has managed to stay one layer above, but still, Levin, he needs so much more to try and pull out a strong placement.
And Teeny has been the key to this duo's success. And one more time, he takes up the mantle to try and clutch up solo. Gets dropped down as Dom looks to do the same for his duo. Plenty of materials to just keep him ticking in this game that much longer. But there will be duos hunting and fighting for him. He doesn't mind though. Twek will jump into his box and he will handle it swiftly. Chap with 8 now. He's really trying to fight for a position to qualify. None of these teams, none of these players want to let this slip.
Crazy crazy though, just how many solos are actually left over here. Jeff with another one onto Minori. Can he get the siphon? No! Darko's gonna shut that one down and pay the ultimate price. He's been eliminated, but Izzy Nosip, one of the few lobby teams, actually has a duo still trying to contend up against the likes of Darm, who's gonna get Nosip in the process. Focus now dropping Agent of Chaos. He wants to confirm this victory royale for himself and Thomas. They've been needing a big bounce back game here on day 2, and they might just be able to find it. Focus, Thomas still skirting around, just waiting. Both of them so limited on materials in comparison to Darm. He might actually have the firepower to do this, but the shots overhead from Thomas are going to get the job done. Darm is just so incredibly weak. He won't have an opportunity to heal, not with 2 separate players aggressing on his floors just like this. And Thomas' focus incredibly low, but it doesn't matter. Thomas will make sure to cement a victory royale in their favor.
Dom did his absolute best, but Thomas and Focus from above, dropping down below, will get their second win of the competition.
Thank you so much, guys. Focus and Thomas, they've been pretty dependable in the lobby so far, but it's great to see them pop up and get a second victory royale. Mini Minor.
Yeah, great to see. I mean, they just need a zone, you know? It's like, there's finally, they get a south zone, sort of. They only had a couple this weekend, and finally they've actually made it work right there. Taking high, only a couple of eliminations as well, but it's exactly what this team needs. Should be boosting them up in the standings as well, because they weren't even sort of that far down to Carter going into that game, so it's going to do them a world of good, and their confidence a world of good as well.
Yeah, they've actually done quite well today. Yesterday, they ended in 15th place, and I think they're 7th place going into this last match. So after that win, they're going to be jumping up even higher. They got eliminations, 8 eliminations in the game before this, and as we saw this time around, they weren't as frag heavy, but they still got the VR, which is more than enough. So I'm honestly very happy to see this.
I love the way they took high there as well, taking down Swizzy and Pixie, and I think they benefited from the fact that, of course, Shark and Teeny went down a lot earlier in that game. They were a little bit scuffed. Of course, Sky and Scroll down a lot earlier than expected in that game as well, but they needed to step up and take the plate right there, which they did, of course, as well. And I think, again, it's just been a bit of a what could have been grand finals from Thomas HD. It's like, yeah, we talk about zones, but even still, it's like, this has happened last season, it's happened last major, and they couldn't quite make it happen. So it's like, I really wanted to see a lot more from these guys, which they can still give us here in these last 2 games, but they've just shown how much they've got in the tank in that last game.
Well, it was a shocker for our top 2 duos. We're talking about what happened to Sky and Scroll and Shark and Teeny after the break.
I got hit with that one off. I'm popping in that bit. Wait, short. Got 6 build? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid, wait. 100? 100? Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
We've only got 2 games left of the FNCS Europe Major 2 Grand Finals, guys. I'm not going to get sad about it right now. I'm just going to savor the moment because that could have been a highly impactful game for Sharkantini because Sky and Scroll, they managed to fight that off-spawn situation we saw versus Ping and Ghost. And we'll talk about what happened afterwards because Takata talked me through this.
It was scary. It got me nervous. I was not fully expecting this, but in the back of my mind, I kind of was. Okay, the issue is from this off spawn, they did come out on top. Sharkantini didn't get a big game, so it hasn't changed too much. But Mini, I am scared for what's to come.
Well, that's the thing. These guys got contested off spawn. Of course, all that off spawn practice last night would have paid off for them. Not that they necessarily need it. They're so good off spawn anyway. But really weird, actually, because they went down then, of course, what was it, like 30 seconds, something like that, to Surge, which we haven't seen them but get hit by Surge at all throughout this entire weekend until that very last game. And the reason that's confusing is, like, you got all that damage off spawn. You, of course, won the off spawn battle. Why not just play exactly the same way with that extra bonus of Surge? Not too sure exactly what went wrong for them, but they just couldn't handle it. So the first real time that, even though they had a bad game yesterday, the first time when they've had a really bad game in this entire weekend.
Mini, is that just like a net Surge issue with one of them going down?
Potentially a net Surge issue, potentially the fact the zone was really far, of course, as well, set them back a little bit from their early game. They couldn't quite loot as quickly as they would, but a little bit concerning for them because, of course, they did win that off spawn. It did throw them off massively throughout the rest of the game, potentially as well. So a little bit concerning for these guys, but of course, it's Sky Scroll.
Yeah, it was an 8-point game for Sky and Scroll. Yesterday, their lowest game was 19th. Today, 32nd. But Sharkantini, this was a massive opportunity for them to potentially take the lead for the first time. Instead, they had to settle for just outside the top 10 mini minor. If I was them, I'd be kicking myself.
Ah, such an opportunity missed, realistically. They needed another one of those big games, which is exactly what they've been having all day. It's their first bad game of the day, realistically, as well. And there was a couple of moments here. They were looking for a lot of that damage. They found it. Things were looking okay. They needed a refresh. Then Teeny got it to Carter, had that chug jug as well. I think it was sort of one of these moments here when they needed that refresh. And they just about almost did enough. And it was this one right here, wasn't it, where they got that elimination. Everything was looking great. You think this is the catalyst for their game. And it almost started to crumble from here. They were late to every rotate, couldn't get the health. Chart went down here and it all sort of fall apart.
Yeah, it wasn't even a terrible match. Like 11th place with 5 eliminations. That's a pretty good match, but they needed it to be a very big one. As you can see, the gap from first to second is still quite strong.
Is it odd, though, that Teeny left Shark behind there rather than trying to help him out with a heal there?
No, I mean, they were both on the wall. It was just a bit of unfortunate events prior to that that kind of led to them going down.
Well, we can see that after that victory royale, Focus and Thomas have climbed up to 3rd place. And if we take a look, Dharm and Demas, after that monster game from Darn, they have gone into the top 10, I think for the first time this weekend, because they were nearly out of the top 20 before the game, mini minor. Fantastic performance from this in-game leader.
Yeah, really struggle yesterday, I suppose, in those sort of off-spawn battles. They had a few really bad games. Today, they've really started to come alive again as well. And it seems to me it's very similar to sort of the Pablo Chino situation, where when they do make it to these end games, they're looking so strong. Dharm here, unbelievable solo clutch himself, getting all these incredible frags, getting 2nd place there at the end. But it's like, imagine if these guys could make it consistently as well to the end game. You never know what could happen.
Oh my god, yeah, I was looking at the leaderboard and I was like, oh, they had 9 eliminations. Okay, no, Dharm had 9 eliminations. Looking like he completely woke up. If he had more HP and shield, maybe the 1v2 could have been completed. But either way, happy for Thomas and Focus for taking that game home.
I think that Dharm and Demas are very much about confidence, and I think they need those big moments in order to gain that momentum and carry that forward. And I think having seen Dharm do that, and to do that as a solo for a considerable amount of time, to pick up all those eliminations, I think that's going to be really motivating them going to the next 2 games. So let's keep our eyes on them. Let's take a look at the 2nd page, because we have so many duos who've already qualified within the top 18. It's only Sides and Scary who are currently outside of it, which means for all the duos on this page, mini minor, it's very exciting. I mean, Savage and Truly, they're currently on the line for qualification just outside it right now. And Chap and Flixie, they have already qualified, but it's great to see them having a resurgence in their performance.
Yeah, remember we looked at the second page going into the last game, and it was only a 30-point difference between 11 and 20th. Now that's more like 90-point difference, which is absolutely crazy to see when you look at the difference in it now. So that gap is widening between this page of the leaderboard. So it's even more important now for the teams like Mr. Savage and Truly, for teams like Cringe and Volker, who are just outside of it, to really now make the most of these last two games. Because if they want to find themselves the globals, this is when it really counts here for them.
Very quickly, guys, can I ask you about Vico Malabuka? Because this is our reigning Summit Championship duo, and yet we're not really seeing that concrete of a game plan from them, I feel like, Takata. We're seeing them jumping all over the lobby, just trying to find their footing and not really finding what they need to get the job done.
Early game struggles is what we're seeing in the most recent matches. 45th, 42nd. Yesterday, they were getting closer to the end games, but overall this weekend, it's not really what we would expect from, being Summit champions.
Well, you know what? We know they come alive on LAN, and we know that they've already qualified for the Global Championships, but not all of our duos tonight have. So these two games that are coming up mean everything. Let's get into game 11.
Who is it gonna be securing their spot at the Global Championships, representing themselves, representing Europe against the rest of the world, Taco?
Well, one thing's for sure, Liv. I wanted to actually address the elephant in the room because we saw Sky Scroll get contested off spawn, and those guys are they're definitely leading the charge in terms of leaderboard, but there are just so many teams that could potentially look to try and switch that up, maybe help out Sharkatini. Hard to say, but I know one thing's for sure. Game 11 underway.
Once more, we will have our eyes peeled here at Frosted Flats. Will Sky and Scroll be gliding in alone, or will there be other duos here to spoil the party? Right now, we see Sky, we see Scroll, we see Ping, we see Ghost, and there's even more names added to the party this time around, Taco.
It's just very interesting strategies from these teams that are not near that section of the leaderboard for consistency, but finding it out amongst each other now. In fact, might have even been able to give a helping hand for Sky and Scroll. It's two separate duos with very early departures. Sky, 2 eliminations, and a little bit of surge damage, only this time they didn't have to take any in return.
Yeah, and so now we might get to see the opposite of what this off-spawn can look like for them, where it spirals into a very successful game. They will deal with the off-spawn disturbance swiftly, and unfortunately for those two teams, not much they can do to affect our Major 1 champs, both of those teams in the bottom half of the leaderboard, 46th and 47th respectively, and more than likely now no chance of qualifying for the Global Championships. Across the lobby, we see a lot of our different teams who still are within a shot when it comes to qualifying for the Global Championship. Of course, the biggest fan favorite, Mr. Savage, the one everybody wants to see make it. And here in Game 11, starts off as a solo, needing to pick Truly back up.
That's the problem, right? Bimbo and Radeon just having Savage on the run currently. He's gonna have to spend so much more time just hiding out before he can realistically try and go for any sort of reboot options. And that setback, when today has just been a series of setbacks for Savage and Truly. It started off the day around that 10th place position on the leaderboard, and with every single match that goes by, find themselves sinking 1, 2 placements ever lower. Meanwhile, competition like Pink and Haris trying to do what they can. They've had some fluctuations, but still ultimately find themselves just on the cusp. They need big performances here. And an early game, surprise, off-spawn contention aside, even if that goes your way, there's just so much more of the game left to play and contend with, and that's really where a lot of the issues have been popping up for these teams because Surge has just been all over the place for a lot of these duos.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult final for plenty of these teams, but plenty of lessons to be taken moving forward. It's been weird because I think obviously where our focus is on the excellence and the honestly just unbelievable levels of consistency from Sky and Scroll. A lot of these different teams have showed in here, you know, games here and there that they still have plenty to offer when it comes to competing with the best of them in EU. But the reality is, as long as Sky and Scroll exist, you're gonna have to be able to do it consistently if you have any hope. Rax and Janice sitting 14th coming into this game, and they're a duo that many will be hoping can do enough just to hold on and get the job done.
It's been promising at times for Rax and Yanis, but obviously Yanis sort of investing into Fortnite future here alongside of Rax, and they're trying to gauge whether or not they can continue just building up on their current placement.
And Janice is someone who has obviously a very storied past. One of the all-time greats here in the EU, many different FNCS championships in multiple modes. One of the few players to win in trios, duos, and a solo. But also a player who is known for his ability to pick out some of the best talents. Many people might have forgotten Janice was one of the first people to really give Pixie an opportunity to showcase what he could do at LAN. And now looking to do the same here for the young, talented Rax.
This is getting weird now at Frosted Flats. Shark and Teeny have gone a long ways from Calamari Canyon, but first we'll have to deal with Godoy and Polo. Teeny, Shark tag team effort has led to one elimination so far, but Sky and Scroll not too far away. Shark trying to see if he can still be hot in pursuit here to take down Polo. They want to make sure that they have a clear avenue of approach when trying to deal with the likes of Sky and Scroll. But the fact of the matter is, if they were sneaking about here, trying to get a surprise play off on Sky and Scroll, Goihoe and Polo have completely ruined it. Sky and Scroll definitely going to be on red alert here. And I was going to ask you earlier on when we first checked in with Shark and Teeny, Levin, was it a missed opportunity for these two to not initially go for that immediate off-spawn fight? But seems like that question's been answered because they've opted to still take the matter into their own hands. They are diving in against Scroll. And Shark trying to be one of the first back into the box here. Scroll just so weak, he needs some backup, but Sky a little bit stuck here. They're trying to work their way up, but Scroll, he's gonna need some help here.
This is monumental. Shark and Teeny, they lost in the final 2v2 a couple games ago, and they've decided they don't want to lose anymore. They're taking the fight to Sky and Scroll, and they know it's them. You can't miss them. This base at Frosted Flats is a big sign, a big flag to say, hey, it's us. And Shark and Teeny, they know they can't maybe play as perfect Fortnite as Sky and Scroll do, but what they certainly can is beat them in a 2v2 box fight, and that is where the urgency comes from. Sky and Scroll will look to create some space, and they'll look to separate, stop a fight from breaking out. But even if Teeny and Shark don't quite get the damage, don't quite get the limbs tackle, you could argue the damage has maybe been done. Think about all the materials Sky and Scroll have had to invest in this one to stay up. Think about the timing and the opportunity lost when it comes to surge damage. This right here could just be enough to rock the boat and give Shark and Teeny that opening that they need.
Also thinking about how many times have we seen Sky and Scroll just already rotated into the perfect position when we approach those endgame circumstances, but with Shark and Teeny here, that's just not going to be an option. They are going to have to deal with these two one way or another. And the conclusion might not be one that they're hoping for, but for Shark and Teeny, they know exactly what is at stake. This would be the game to turn things around. If they are able to convert this fight into a pair of eliminations on Sky and Scroll, and then potentially even look for a solid endgame performance, they're gonna need the victor roll after the fact. It starts with taking out Sky and Scroll. It continues with Shark and Teeny, then having to contend with the rest of the lobby.
In Major 1, Chino and Pablo chose game number 11 as their opportunity to strike. And here in Major 2, Shark and Teeny do the same. They realize that they need the extra game buffer to give themselves the best chance. But it's not going to be easy. Sky and Scroll never make things easy. And so the stalemate will continue. Will they get impatient and leave? Or will somebody make a mistake that costs their duo an FNCS title?
This is really starting to look like a battle of attrition, though. When you think about it, Sky, Scroll, they haven't necessarily had the time that they would have preferred to really farm up the material count, and it's the same position for Shark and Teeny because they had to get a move on. They had to hustle to be in this position in the first place to challenge Sky and Scroll. And now the rest of the lobby also closing in. More teams being drawn to this position because of the way that the zone is pooling. Frosted Flats smack dab in the center of it all. Sky, Scroll, they want to separate, but Shark and Teeny, they don't want to permit. And instead, it's going to be Shark and Teeny creating a little bit more distance than what they bargained for. Potentially even Teeny trying to go for a bit of a fake out here, because now he's going to reunite one more time alongside Shark and just continue to try and hold out, try and find the opening angles that will net them an advantage against the likes of Sky and Scroll. These two, they've realized it's not going to be an option.
What a great overdrive nade from Scroll. Completely fakes Teeny out. And they take enough damage to where they realize if there's any hope for them in this game, they need to dip out and recover this game. Again, when we talk about Sky and Scroll doing things and playing things perfectly, that was the best play they could have made. Psychologically, it just puts the pressure once again on Shark and Teeny, and now their game is spiraling out of control. The investment has not paid its dividends. Shark and Teeny now on bare bones. And what was a play that was started with the intentioning of ending the run of Sky and Scroll might just be what ends the run of Teeny and Shark here.
To make matters worse still, it's Godoy and Polo of all teams that are now circling back. We saw what Shark and Teeny had started with those two. They had forced Godoy out of the vicinity, and yet now they're a little bit stuck in the thick of it. They're not really able to find a way to squeeze themselves out of here, and they need material desperately. It might even be a fight that they're forced to take despite being on fumes here. The options are just so limited right now in comparison to Sky and Scroll, who have just managed to evade all of that chaos because of holding off Shark and Teeny for as long as they did. You have to respect the gall there, though, from Shark and Teeny, though. They made the attempt.
Absolutely, props to them. At every opportunity, Tucker, we've tried to almost write them off and say, look, Sky and Scroll have got the win, FNCS is over, let's focus on the global qualified team. Shark and Teeny say, no, we ain't done fighting. And even if it hasn't paid off, like you said, you have to give them props for the attempt. And one thing I think we can probably say with some confidence is that they won't just go down and roll over. They will keep kicking and keep making a fuss until Sky and Scroll are forced to do something about it. But things now cooling off between the two, Teeny and Shark. When you take away the plays that they made and the context of them trying to take down the team in their way for an FNCS, when you take that all away and just look at their situation right now in this game, Taco, it looks horrible. 3 builds for Teeny. Not much more for Shark. and way down below on Surge.
Their loadouts just look like a duo that has been playing reboot after reboot so far in Game 11, and yet that's just not the case. But ultimately, Shark and Teeny, still hard to rule them out. We know just how quickly they can turn a fight into their favor. But for Sky and Scroll, potentially even looking on some of the action that's about to ensue here, Shark, Teeny, their tourney standings on the line here. If they go down before placement really even begins to factor in, Sky and Scroll are going to be left largely uncontested. They very likely just see themselves as tournament winners here, but Shark, Teeny desperately trying to see whether or not they can bring down Pixie, Swizzy, both of them just narrowly managing to skirt around, but they run directly into where Dinas is at, and now Teeny, Shark trying to come alive here, but they found themselves a bit pincered now. Teeny has fallen, Surge ticking away at what HP is left here, and Shark forced to fall back, but 519 below. There's only so much left to be done in this type of circumstance, and for Shark, it's just too tall of a task, too big of an ask even, for him to seriously try and overcome it. Damage options just drawing further and further away from him. Swizzy and Pixie, they've managed to evade Shark and Teeny, but for Sky and Scroll, there is no one left in sight to catch them.
Wow. The game's not even done, Taco, but what a game so far. I mean, this is what it's all about. Sky and Scroll now have the opportunity to really try and shut Shark and Teeny up for goods. I think the funny thing about this game becomes no matter what Sky and Scroll do here, they have to know. Next game, Frosted Flat is not safe. No, they better have someone prepping another drop spot for them for the final game. They should not go anywhere near that spot. But let's see what they cook up here in game number 11. Let's see if they can add to their lead and mitigate any potential game 12 off-spawn shenanigans. Of course, they also have had quite a tough time trying to make up for the lost time after that Shark and Teeny stalemate. But they've done a better job of recovering the game here, Taco.
And, you know, for as heartbreaking as that defeat was for Sky and Scroll at Summit, can't help but think that that might have just been the missing piece for those two. The level up that they have experienced from having been in that type of position and now realizing just how they can match up to the pressure here in the Major 2 Grand Finals. But there are other teams still looking for other prizes, one of them being that Global's position. And for Truly and Savage, they have really had to try and dig their way out of the trenches here right now. Bimbo and Radion just hounding them for the most part, but Savage and Truly still getting just enough damage done, but they're going to need so much more than that. They want to stay in contention. 73 below now. Savage forced to pause, forced to utilize some of their healing resources. Got to get his shield back up to a level where he won't be immediately dropped on their next rotation, but Truly knows their options are so limited. They try to catch off guard Cammy and Hardy, but it's going to be no use. Cammy, Hardy immediately separate, and now Truly desperately trying to find any form of damage. Savage has already fallen though. And Truly, he has to get an elimination.
Truly, he's done so well as a solo throughout this season, but unfortunately will meet his end. And that puts so much pressure on that final game now for that duo. But there are plenty other duos in a similar boat. Pink and Haris, they will not be fearful as they have such a big opportunity in this final game, or these final 2 games here, to make something happen. Jewel needs to do his best because he currently sits in a global spot and he doesn't want to jeopardize that. as a solo can't make it work.
Forcefully ejected from the lobby, but still has game 12 to work with to try and defend that position on the leaderboard. Velo and Zynox, another team in a similar position. Only they are running very low on their build count. We saw Rax and Yanis just moments ago holding down a little bit of a low ground position. Now they've gone all the way up. Big point of elevation here. Solid material counts too. The loadouts definitely looking fairly healthy in comparison to a lot of the other teams that we've hovered over. But for Sky and Scroll, every single time they secure an elimination, Shark and Teeny, you'd imagine their stomachs just gutted feelings because they are only continuing to create an even bigger gap. They are looking for being the back-to-back Axe of Champion wielders, and they might just do it depending on how this Game 11 plays out for them. For right here, right now, Cringe, Volko doing everything they can to keep just breaking through some of these more congested areas. Venus and Fnatic, they won't be able to overcome the wall that is Sky and Scroll. This dropped by Nathan. And even as a solo, it doesn't make a difference because every single one of these players looking for that separating moment that give them every single bit of placement points, every single bit of elimination points. Velo and Zynox diving right in, but bit off a little bit more than they could chew here. Wi-Fi and Boris were ready to punch back.
Yeah, that leaves Velo in such a tough spot. With all the focus on the first and how impressive they've been, so many of our teams fighting for globals, having struggles, and so many of those teams in the bubble might just be able to make it first as we go into this final game. Here in this end game though, Sky and Scroll are still looking for that win condition. They want to add to the tally. They want to make it for another win.
And they've already got that front side low control. Raxianis, they might be in a position where they're going to look to drop again, but from where we last saw Sky and Scroll at, and the way that this elevation has shifted, they are just looking to pick apart any sort of stragglers that come anywhere near their turf here. Velo still trying to do what he can to wrap around. Has gone unsighted for the time being, but Sky and Scroll, it feels like they might be doing the victory lap early here in Game 11. Because one more elimination onto Yanis. 4 already. Ample amounts of material now being picked up here. The medkits going to certainly help out a plenty. Sky, Scroll, now looking to try and reunite. Velo, Tango, Wing, and Boris, and Wi-Fi, but they'll find yet another elimination there. Sky and Scroll, though, looking back. Hari, Cammy, trying to make a resurgence. Today has not been theirs for the taking, but they're still looking to see whether or not Game 11 could possibly go in their favor.
How do they keep doing it? Scroll should have been taken out ages ago, but it leaves Sky as a solo to continue to add points to the tally. And he has done it so many times here in this major for this duo. Whether it's major 1, Sky clutching up, major 2, Sky will do it again. So many valuable points on the board. But for Hutty and Fishy, this is a much needed opportunity at a win. But they have to be careful because Hari will never make it easy. The Storm will get the job done. Hutty and Fishy take game number 11.
It's a duo that we haven't had much opportunity to talk about throughout the course of this weekend so far, but coming alive in the final hour, better late than never after all. What did you say, Frankie?
Absolutely. Better late than never, but will it make much of a dent in the leaderboard? I am not so sure, but congratulations to Hutty and Fishy for claiming that victory royale. However, we have to admit that all eyes were on the low ground because we wanted to see if Sky and Scroll could do it yet again. They could have had a catastrophic early game, but they managed to come through again. We'll be talking in detail about their game after the break. But before then, let's talk about Hutty and Fishy. Takata, this is a team that's had many lows this weekend, so it's great to see them on a high.
Yeah, I'm trying to even find where they were. There's 36th place going into this match. Just not a good weekend coming from these two. They were surprise contested last minute day 1. They thought they were going to have Wonky on con, and it has just been downhill since then, Mini. But now little bit of an uphill.
Yeah, it's nice to see, of course. I think we expected bigger things from this weekend. The storyline that we were sort of teeing up is like, no more Sharkantini. Now the sky's the limit. And unfortunately, the sky was quite low for these guys over the course of the weekend. Just hasn't quite been their time. Hutty, after yesterday, posted on socials, he just said, count me out. So he wasn't feeling confident after yesterday, but it's actually nice to see that confidence maybe being instilled in them. I'm interested to see actually where it puts them on the leaderboard. Of course, you know, their goal, of course, would be to qualify for the global championships. Maybe they need another big game like this in the very last one to actually make that happen. But they've given themselves the hope, which is the most important thing. They've given themselves something to latch onto here in this last game, because without that game, things were looking very dire indeed for them this weekend.
There's the FNCS Global's last chance qualifier that's coming up on August 14th. For any duos who have counted themselves out, they don't have to count themselves out of Globals yet, but we'll be talking about who looks likely to make it to Belgium after the break.
I got hit. I'm popping a med bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, maxed up. Wait, if you're med, wait. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
I always say that game 11 is really the moment that the competition shifts. We confirm a champion or we see the unexpected happen, and we basically saw both potentially in game 11, Takata. The question now is, can anything go wrong for Sky and Scroll?
It's tough to say. It is very tough to say. If we look at the standings, look, Minnie, I know you like put numbers together. What would Sharkantini actually have to do to overthrow Sky and Scroll here?
Well, all they need is for Sky and Scroll to go down off spawn and get 0 points, right?
Okay.
And then get a 30 elim win.
That's
Which
not
hasn't
bad.
happened
Wait, what's
in
the
EU
record again?
ever.
In like
No, it's
ever?
never. No, never.
What's the
Never
elim
happened at all.
record in a grand finals? Do you know that?
16, I think, something like that.
16. So they have to get
it's never
double.
happened. No, it's never happened.
Double the record of the current grand finals eliminations of an FNCS.
Yep.
And Sky and Scroll have to go down off spawn. Okay.
Yeah. Solid.
Well, we did see 2 duos landing near Sky and Scroll off spawn this time. Obviously, it's Sky and Scroll, so they came out of it unscathed to Carter. But things could happen in Game 12. You never know.
Hey, anything could happen. We broke it down. It is mathematically possible. It's not going to be easy, but it is possible. But huge round of applause to Sky and Scroll. They have been playing out of their minds. They won Major 1. Tragic end to the summit, but they're back in business once again here in Major 2. You can see how well they're playing, even in those final moments. The difference I see is Major 1, they were playing flawlessly, right? But also there was a lot of solo clutch points. And as I'm speaking, we're looking at a solo clutch, but throughout this second major, I feel like the chemistry has been higher. We've seen them do more kind of duo-oriented plays in these final moments, and it's what I love to see from Sky and Scroll as they've evolved.
And Sharkantini will be kicking themselves because that standoff of Frosted Flats, that was their decision to rotate over Mini Miner. If they hadn't ended up in that stalemate, they could have sorted themselves out, got ready for the mid-game, and instead we saw it end in disaster for them.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Sky and Scroll. Every single time they've been asked questions of this grand finals, and of course last one as well, they have had the answers for it. Sky and Scroll, every single time there's a team landed on them, they've had that answer. Every single time there's been a team fighting them here in the mid game, they have had the answer. And the ultimate question was asked of them, of course, in that last game. Can you fight off the team in that second place? The team that's chasing you when the pressure is really on. They had the answer again. It just seems like these guys cannot be stopped right now. And, you know, to be honest, realistically, yeah, 30-lim win and Sky and Scroll not to get any points. That is a pipe dream, but you never know, I suppose.
Well, they lost Summer after taking an unwise fight off spawn that they didn't necessarily have to take. And so they've learned from it. They've moved forward. I can't wait to see what happens for them in Game 12. And I'm also really excited for Kami and Hari. They have confirmed their spot at the Global Championships now after disappointment in Dusseldorf. And it's really exciting to see Hari in particular. He is an endgame insurance policy for this duo, always picking up huge eliminations when he makes it to the final moments, Mini Miner.
Yeah, and sort of at the beginning of this this sort of season, I suppose, you had to say, is that Hari and Kami, the big question was, how are they going to do this season? They really need to qualify for those global championships because I've always said Kami is that sort of land goat. He's that player that just shows up on land, and here in the grand finals as well, showing up. You mentioned it right there. Hari, what a performance from him this weekend. Really, really excited to see not just what Kami can do on that global championship stage yet again, but also what he can do alongside Hari, because he has really showed up this weekend to Carter and just showed up beyond probably a lot of people's expectations.
Yeah, at the start of the day, we kind of were breaking down how well both of these players are playing their roles. Hari eliminating everything, getting a bunch of damage, playing that fragger role perfectly, and Kami has been putting him in the position to do so.
It's been a perfect marriage. Let's take a look at the leaderboard because we need to take a look at page 2, gentlemen, because we're looking at the cutoff point for global championships. Given that 8 of the 9 already qualified duos are in the top 17, it means that that is the cutoff. So right now we know that Vico and Malabuka already, we're going to see them in Belgium. So you're looking at Acer, Turtle and above. We've got to give props to Yanis and Rax. They didn't have a performance to write home about yesterday, but today they're looking really secure and they're really building up to have a fantastic game 12 to Carter.
Yeah, it's what you love to see, kind of being a bit more comfortable higher up in that qualifying range, but they're not comfortable enough where the nerves aren't going to be there going into game 12. Every single duo on that second page that we looked at has a chance to qualify, but also a chance, Mini, to drop out.
Yeah, something that I spoke about going into this game about that sort of second page was because it was so wide open now, and of course, you know, there's a lot more of a disparity between sort of 11th and 20th, is that the teams that want to qualify for the Global Championship, which of course a lot of those teams, they need to make the most of these last 2 games, and Rax and Yanis definitely did that. I mean, it wasn't the best game ever for them, it wasn't an absolutely perfect game for them, but an 8th place with 7 eliminations really, really puts them in contention right now. A team that weren't on that standings, though, a team that weren't in that second page and are not on the screen right now, it is Mr. Savage, and of course truly they had a pretty poor performance there, just 1 spot out of the placement points. So the big question for me right now is, can they clutch it up in the last moment? It seems to be always Mr. Savage doing it. Can they end the weekend how they started?
There's so many big names right outside of the cutoff. We talked about the fight for first. It's not very probable, but for all the duos that have a shot at qualifying to the global championship, this is their last chance to to make it happen. Just some of the names outside of the range right now: Cringe Volko, Mr. Savage Truly, Izzy Nosif, Nevs Nathan. There's just too many titans that have everything on the line going into this last match.
Well, here's the thing, guys. You can prove yourself to be the best duo in Europe today after Game 12, but you can't prove yourself to be the best duo in the world unless you make it to the FNCS Global Championships. After this game, we'll know who is in contention. So let's get into Game 12.
Look, as far as Savage and Truly are concerned, Levin, maybe we want to chalk it up to it just being for the content, but we are going to need to see some big performances here in Game 12. And they're not the only ones trying to seek out that global qualification spot. They don't want to have to try and fare their way through that last chance qualifier. It is just going to be absolutely ballistic on that side of the pond. So obviously here, Game 12, it's time to get the job done. So let's see it.
So much talent currently sits outside of our globals qualification threshold. And that means just one thing. This game is about to get wicked. We are about to see so many different duos doing everything in their power. Before we get to globals though, let's take one last look at our major champions here. Sky and Scroll will land at Frosted. And I think quite humorously, as the analyst sort of mentioned, for them to lose the FNCS from now, they would have to go down with 0 points, which uncontested or spawn isn't an issue. And Shark and Teeny would have to drop a 30 elim win, which has never been done. And I don't think anyone's even come anywhere close to putting up them type of numbers. So Sky and Scroll will do their victory lap, but Mr. Savage and Truly will just be trying to stay in the race. Marius and Fredoxy have not had the best FNCS final, but they will look to spoil the party here for Mr. Savage. Can he 1v2? No! Mr. Savage, the dream, the script. What a terrible ending to the story. They will go down at the hands of Fredoxy, who will add salt to the wound with an emote on top.
He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly where he was going. He knew exactly what he was spoiling. Fredoxy enveloping the villain role here on day 2, but game is game. And for Fredoxy and Medius, that is going to be where they try to kick things off here. Prizing still on the line, after all. Shark and Teeny, on the other hand, though, they have admitted defeat. Sky and Scroll have already taken to social media. It is just way too big of an ask to expect for anybody to actually be able to get 30 eliminations and a win to overtake them. And for Shark and Teeny right now, they've got to be a lot more worried about whether or not they can even defend their second place position, because if Aldous and Larix are able to roll them over here, that might just be enough for somebody else on the leaderboard to potentially overtake. That gap not quite solid enough just yet, but Larix Valdez, they might have had the jump start. But even with the jump scare, Shark and Teeny are all too familiarized with evil Fortnite, and they will not be shaken this early on in Game 12. Managed to win it. You can see where exactly things might have gone south entirely. The ledge went a little bit further there.
That will be Maldis and Larix locking in the 49th place this weekend. Shark and Teeny. I mean, look, we have to talk and give them their props. They tried their hardest and they made things fun towards the end. But when you're playing against one of the best duos in Fortnite history, it's always gonna be a tough task.
Imagine they get close, though. Just start to make them a little bit worried. You know, something like 20 eliminations. It might start to raise an eyebrow or two. You see Sharkantini on the move like that?
Didn't realize I was commentating with Boop here, mate. They are not dropping 20 elims, bro. Like, this is not happening. Like,
This is EU after all, so actually, true facts. But Asa, Turtle, really trying to bring things back. And for these two, trying to make sure that they stay inside of that threshold for getting their qualification spot to Belgium. Nebs and Nathan, on the other hand, they're trying to work their way in, and they are going to need a very sound performance here in Game 12 if they want to have any chance making their way in to around that top 17 area.
yeah, this is a very key game. Nebs and Nathan, if you aren't familiar, they are probably the duo in EU outside of some of the biggest names, some of the already global qualified teams who were having the best season, right? When you looked at their performances in the divisional cups, when you looked at how they played in the heats, they looked like a team who was a shoo-in to qualify for globals this season. And I know they had their fair share of ups and downs, obviously, at times contested throughout the day, but the reality is for them to not qualify for globals would be a massive disappointment and not what many people would have predicted at all. One thing that becomes very scary with Teeny and Shark, which we learned from the heats, is when Teeny and Shark don't feel like they have anything to play for, they become the scariest team in the lobby because they will just run at everyone and they often win most of the fights. And so if you are a team who is trying to qualify for the global championships or trying to hold on to your spot to qualify, this is the worst team you can face. Jaw and Tidy will go down, and they came into this game in 8th, and I think they should be able to hold on. But boy, is that not how they wanted this game to go.
Not in the slightest, because even if you've got that spot locked in for globals, off the consistency metrics, there is still a decent amount of prize pooling up for grabs, and when you've essentially just got to sit it out, wait and see whether or not you actually get overtaken on the leaderboard, it can be a tough pill to swallow, but right there with you, Lev, Shark and Teeny, just every bit of the way, looking like Crash Out Nation currently, and you would think that they're like desperate for some kind of whopping performance to take them across the line here, but no, it's just them absolutely free-forming it the whole way through. They don't care. They're just making whatever plays they feel like they can pull off.
Yeah, and look, they're not the only ones crashing out. Look at the player count. Look at the amount of teams that are already out of this one. This game does not resemble what we have seen previously so far this weekend. I would love to get a leaderboard update, because I wouldn't be surprised if a couple more of our teams who were in global qualification spots have gone down without us noticing, just with how many players have been falling. I mean, there must be a couple of them who are already out of it and just holding on. Scott, oh, he's playing a bit of keepy uppies. GG, well played. Look. Clicks, fans, rise. Clicks, fans, rise. Hey, look, supporting their boy, I guess. Look, one thing we have to say on not Shark and Teeny, on Sky and Scroll before we really start to lock into the global spots is, this is one of the best duos ever. To back-to-back EU majors, nobody's done it since 2021. It hasn't felt doable for a long time. We've seen some all-time great performances, Taco. But I think what really solidifies Sky and Scroll to me, no mythics, no medallions, no gimmicks, no broken POIs, just pure Fortnite excellence at a level that we have not seen. Two of the most complete players we have ever seen touch this game. They can do it all. I think the only comparison I've really seen people make, Taco, as far as the all-time greats and people in their primes when it comes to just this level of perfect Fortnite, is Cammy and Seti from way back in the day, which is a fair comparison. But even then, you'd have to make the argument that these guys can fight in a way that maybe Cammy and Stay, even at their best, couldn't. And that really is what makes these guys such a scary prospect going into globals. And when you look at the all-time great teams.
And that's the bigger end of things that I think is impossible to avoid. If you are one of the competitors that is already confirmed for globals, every single other region, you are going to be voting every step of Sky and Scroll's performance here in Grand Finals. Even with slight shifts in the meta, Sky and Scroll have still managed to overcome, and they deserve every single bit of praise that is headed their way. You can never say enough on these two, especially after what they've accomplished this weekend, and given the fact that they had so many other teams trying to ruin it in the process, and yet they still manage to hold their composure and achieve a level of Fortnite that, like you said, Lev, just hasn't been seen in a very, very long time. But now, looking back out at all of these other teams that can't afford to lose their nerve either in this final moment, Nebs and Nathan, bit calmer, but that player count just thinning out so rapidly. Shark and Teeny also on the move. Roxy and Marius not too far off in the distance either from where Nebs and Nathan are currently at. And if I had to take a guess, Lev, wouldn't be surprised to see Fred and Marius potentially playing spoiler. Some of these other duos hovering at bubble territory for that global qualification spot. And Pink and Haris, it's so hard not to lose your composure.
Yeah, these guys, this is probably one of the biggest games of Pink's career. When you look at the heights he used to reach playing alongside Anas back in the day, it's been a while since we've really seen him shining. And what better opportunity than the Global Championships to show people, to prove to people, he's not done, he's not finished. They have to make this game count. They can't afford any slip-ups, any mistakes.
What also just makes that so tough too for a duo like Pink and Haris is that even Pink himself at one point has said, I've never invested more of myself. I've never given my all to something and not had it come back with some metric of success. And yet his recent tourneys in Fortnite have all just been devastating defeats, one after the next. So this could be a very big changing point for Pink's career, because to overcome that type of failure time and time again and then still manage to pull yourself into a position where you can say, yes, I've still got it. It's got to be one of the best feelings to accomplish as a player, and he's right there on the cusp of doing so in this competition.
Absolutely. Not the only one, though, that is close to doing it. Izzy and Nosif on our screens were another team who were going into this game outside and so need a big performance, but they're already a great example of a duo that has had such a fantastic comeback so far in day 2, but needs to do just a bit more. Teeny and Shark on our screens now, going up against Sky and Scroll. A little too late, lads. But boy, this would have been... I mean, yeah, maybe, but at what cost, man? What would we really be achieving here? Nothing that would change the standings rapidly at the top.
They've already set their eyes on physics yet again, though. But Sky Scroll also following suit. Teeny actually going to meet his end. It's Bimbo and Radeon. They're going to be the first that they actually get caught out with, but Shark, he's just looking to try, have an opportunity to look to maybe play for a revive. But Bimbo and Radeon, this might have actually been a very big lifeline for these two. Shark has a lot to offer. Unless they can't bring him down, Shark already gonna get one in. Bimbo Radeon might just be the next, and Shark turning it in his favor just like that. Despite losing Teeny, You can never just run at Shark, and that is a perfect example of why he is one of the most feared fraggers on this region.
Let's run this one
Absolutely
back.
Insane.
Oh my goodness, that first pump was disgusting. And then he's just toying, playing with his food here. And a Mongrel classic to close it out. Shark showcasing, highlighting why he is so rated. But as Shark rotates in here as a solo, I do want to take the time, Taco, to big up Teeny. For all the praise Shark gets as being the best in EU, the best fragger, the talent that's gonna compete with Peter Bot and be the greatest, Teeny in this Grands has been phenomenal. He has kept up and actually just led the duo all throughout the weekend. In the big moments when they've needed bigger limbs, Teeny has gotten the job done. When they've needed clutches, Teeny has gotten the job done. And he's given the space and the room for your young Shark to find his footing in this Grands. And I think it just speaks to his level, his greatness. Over in NA, I think we've seen Curve being so impressive as a controller playing, pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible since the likes of Miro have dominated the game years ago. But Teeny here on EU continuing to showcase that he is the benchmark for top controller Fortnite. And I think he deserves his praise for that alongside the greatness of Shark.
Couldn't agree with you more. Excited to see Teeny has now forcefully passed the torch here to Shark. Let's see just how far Shark can actually take it as a solo. Be an exciting adventure, to say the least. Does have a really solid material count. This is the type of loadout you would want to see Shark rocking if he is in a solo base position. But for Asa and Turtle, time is running out here for these two. Asa can't afford to hold his walls any longer. The lobby focus just too detrimental. And you have to remember, that is a team that was right at placement 17 heading into this final lobby. So their spot at Belgium might just be up for grabs. It all depends on how the rest of this lobby plays out, but just forced to sit and watch. It's a tough place to be in.
Yeah, as this lobby starts to close out, our focus switches away and onto those teams who need the qualification for the global championships. For Asher and Turtle to go down, and that is heartbreaking. They have really tried their hardest to get themselves back into contention today. They've had some excellent games. I mean, an 8th place, a 2nd place, and 2-6. We've seen them on height trying to fight for it, but it's just not been enough to secure them solidly. And there will be plenty of regret, I'm sure, as they replay what they could have done differently this weekend. And it's up to the rest of the teams in this lobby who are sitting on that bubble in that range to make sure they don't leave the weekend feeling the same, Taco.
Probably the only thing missing right now from Sky and Scroll's performance, though, Lev, is just 6 out of 12. That's got to be the next challenge that they would look to approach potentially at some point in their careers. But as of right now, all of these teams that are just stumbling their way through some of these first moving zones here. Cammy, Hari, overhead right now. Volko, Cringe, not going to be able to escape the sights of Zynox. Is now front side, getting a little bit more scrappy. No, O'Reilly won't be able to face up to it. Just too many players standing in his path. They'll be eliminated. Pix, Firen, also looking to try and cement themselves with their globals certification. They'll have to be very cautious as they make their way across here now. Giannis and Rax have done a great job too, just playing recoveries. Inox actually cleared out Chapped and Flixie. A little bit of a power position as they wait for an opportunity to strike, but Giannis and Rax now making their move towards front side. Every player for himself, essentially, but Rax and Giannis doing a great job at staying next to each other.
No Siffinizzi. We talked about them needing a big game. Same with Nathan and Nebs. These teams are setting up to do it. But we've seen teams get to this point in the game and fall over, trip up. That can't be Nebs and Nathan's story if they want to be back on that global stage. And we need to see the Nebs and Nathan we have seen all throughout this season in divisional cups and all.
No time to buckle here. Nebs and Nathan have just got to be concise with every single move they make. They're gonna take their time, really try and see whether or not they can find an opportune moment inside of the mid ground. They want to stay one layer above ultimate low. They know that's very likely where Sky and Scroll are going to be operating, but Sky and Scroll met with problems of their own here. Still, it doesn't matter in comparison to what Rax is trying to accomplish. Playing the medkit, Sky and Scroll out of the lobby, though, now means that frontside low up for grabs, and other teams looking to take advantage of it immediately. Pablo Chino also looking to cut players short. It's Pixie and Swizzy making things very complicated right now for Focus and Thomas, but it's Pixie and Swizzy that pay the ultimate price here. Izzy and Nosif, though, from deep inside of the storm, playing through that backside of zone. It's getting so chaotic on the front end of things, but Nebs, Nathan, they're gonna be the ones that are trying to take matters into their own hands. They've got an opportunity here, Levin, and as small as it might be, they are going to have to seize every bit of it because they don't have any other options if they want to make it to globals.
Yeah, these guys have the benefit of some of those teams in the qualification spots have gone down and they don't have a chance to fend off their point leads. And so Nebs and Nathan, if they can start to add a couple more limbs to the tally and continue to control low ground, they might just do enough to book their tickets to Antwerp.
It's just so scary, though, especially when you can hear all these audio cues around you. Nebs, Nathan, though, managing to carve their way through frontside still. They see Kenty right in front of them. They're going to punish Chino the moment that he tries to run for the body loot. Pablo incredibly injured also, but Nebs hasn't had a chance to look bad and get those shots in just yet. Nathan needs some help, but Nebs won't be able to fall back in time. He is going to find another onto Cheatin, though. Every single elimination bringing them one step closer to potentially securing that qualification spot. But Nebs, he's not finished. He sees Fruzy, he knows the body, but he doesn't get the siphon. It's going to be the Storm, takes care of that player instead. Will be utilizing that Chug Jug just to buy himself a little bit more time. The placement is going to be the topic of focus right now, as Izzy also doing everything in his power just to try and stay alive. One placement further, but Winter and Hellfire have held strong here on the low ground. They haven't had the chance, though, to turn back around against Swizzy and Pixie, who are now looking for the immediate collapse.
Swizzy and Pixie will wrap this grand up and take game number 12. But it's all about that leaderboard. We know our champions. We know who's been victorious, but who will be going to globals, Frankie?
We have to wait to find out, but right now, a huge congratulations to Sky and Skrull. They won Major 1 in glory. They had devastation, underperforming and placing 4th at the summit, and that could drive any duo apart. But this duo are built to bounce back, and not only have they done that in dominant fashion, Miniminer.
Unbelievably dominant throughout this weekend, unbelievably dominant throughout Major 1, so close to claiming that Summit title, but they have done it. Back-to-back major titles for the best duo in EU. Over on NA, we've seen the Peterbot era, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sky and Scroll era.
Shivers. I'm getting nervous just thinking about the global championship. Not only did they win Major 1, now they've won Major 2, and we talked about the devastating end to Summit. Let me remind you, they were first place going into the last match. That's 250K for first, and they went down not to second, not to third, to fourth. Dropped down from 250 to 70K, but now they've shown. There were doubters. You switch your drop spot. People have been rod reviewing your game, your play style, your strategies. It did not matter. They proved every single person wrong and now have won the back-to-back majors. I am so excited to see their performance at the Global Championship because they are looking like they're at a whole other level.
Honestly, throughout this weekend, every single question that was asked of them, they've been landed on. They've had doubters. They've been in mid-game fights. They've had Storm Surge to deal with. Every single question that was asked of them, they have dealt with. They are by far the best team on Europe right now. And as you mentioned, Takata, those global championships, they're coming for them.
I mean, it was one mistake. It was one mistake at Summit that cost them the victory, and they have learned from it. They have grown from it, and everyone in the lobby at the Global Championships needs to be ready for Sky and Scroll. So let's see who will be joining them